What's happening, story makers? E Avery here again with the next lesson in the Children's Book Council Make Your Own Storybook competition. This lesson is all about creating a resolution for our picture book. Now, if you aren't writing a picture book and you're writing a storybook, the resolution for a storybook is in the links down below, because remember, there is a little bit of a difference. Storybooks primarily driven through the descriptive language, and picture books is where words and pictures work together to tell the complete story. Now, Charlie, in Happy as a Hog Out of Mud, has got himself into a bit of a pickle. We did, in the last two lessons, in two parts, we wrote the first part and the second part of a conflict. Now, Charlie has been covered in mud and he's really annoyed with his friends and family. They just won't stop, I guess, trying to get him in the mud, and they don't listen to him, and he just doesn't like it. He stomps off into the bushveld where he meets the flamingos, and he thinks his problems are all solved because he's met a bunch of sophisticated animals just like him. But the flamingos are kind of mean and a bit snobbish and aren't very nice to hang around with, and he doesn't really feel part of the group, and he's feeling quite alienated and lost and alone. And now we're going to solve his problem, and we're going to go travel down the other side of Story Mountain and start wrapping everything up. Now, guys, one important thing you need to know when you're writing your resolution is that your resolution has to be solved by your character. Something can't just magically come and solve their problems. It's got to be something that they solve themselves, and that sort of shows their development, and it makes it more interesting too. So if something just magically comes and solves their problem, it feels a bit like you're cheating a little bit in the story, and it just doesn't feel right. So that's the one important thing that you got to keep locked in your head, is that whatever problem that you've come up with, whatever pickle your character is in, they've got to find a way to solve it themselves and come out as the hero, as it were. I'm going to go to my desk and I'm going to start writing my resolution. Okay guys, ready to write my resolution. Now, as usual, the links to this template can be found in the description down below. And as usual, I'm also going to be writing using my key down the side, making sure I've got all of these things checked off. Number one, I'm going to try really hard to make sure that Charlie solves his own problem. As usual, going to show, don't tell. I'm going to let my pictures do the talking. And I'm going to try to limit the amount of words that I use, so really use words economically for a picture book. I'm going to write with my senses. What can we see? What can we feel? What can we hear? And that's pretty much it. Where did we get up to? Let's refresh our memories. So in the second part of the conflict, Charlie was he was trying to share his hobbies with the flamingos, trying to balance on one leg, and he was having a difficult time doing that, and the flamingos didn't like his poetry or his tea or his bird watching. They found that pretty creepy. So he's feeling really alone. Now I'm going to try and solve that problem for him. Alright, I have finished my resolution. Made a bit of a mistake on this little illustration there. I scratched it out. Worked on the back instead, which is fine. Remember, this is a rough draft, so it doesn't have to look beautiful at all. Now, I'm going to go through it, check to see that I've nailed all of the things that are in my checklist over there. So, let's make sure our story flows on from the last part. Charlie had never felt more alone in his life. The flamingos also had a tendency to complain. Too bumpy, too lumpy, too jumpy. They tended to complain a lot. Now, I've written too bumpy, too lumpy, too jumpy. I've drawn a picture. There's going to be a picture of a crocodile over here, a picture of a camel that's too lumpy, and a frog over here down the bottom that's too jumpy. So I'm letting the pictures do most of the talking in that one. Charlesworth found it all quite exhausting. Then, one day, he heard them complaining about his old associates. So we've got the flamingos in the background, the speech bubbles above them as they talk, and then we've got the hogs playing in the foreground here. And this is what they're saying. And would you look at those disgusting warthogs? Play in mud, walk on all fours, how unsophisticated. Well, this was the last straw for Charlie. At least those hogs know how to have fun and care about each other, Charlie scolded the pompous pink puddlebirds. You can see him over there frowning and yelling at them, and they're looking quite surprised and taken aback. And then we go for a close-up of the birds, and then they're having a conversation amongst themselves, looking quite shocked. Fun? In the mud? Who could have fun playing in the mud with a pack of muddy hogs? And then we'll have a speech bubble coming off the edge of the page as Charlie's out of frame. And it says, I'll tell you who, and we'll turn the page and we'll see the speech bubble here say, me, as Charlie jumps into the mud with his friends and family all kind of laughing and rejoicing that he's back. Let's see if I've got everything I need. Okay, so has my character solved their problem? Well, what I actually had to do here is I had to make the flamingos just a little bit worse, by making fun of all the other animals, and then they made fun of the hogs, and that was sort of Charlie's last straw. And he realized that all these horrible things that the flamingos are saying about his friends and family, that's what he was saying before. So he's kind of come to this realization that, that even though they're playing in mud and they aren't maybe so sophisticated, doesn't mean that they're not worth hanging around. So Charlie's worked it out for himself, and he's actually even run back away from the flamingos to his family to rejoin them, to be part of the group again. So he's discovered that, maybe he just needs to, I guess, be a little bit more open to what other people like to do. Show don't tell. Well, I've got plenty of it over here on page 24, where I say too bumpy, too lumpy, too jumpy, and that's kind of a bit of a fun rhyme there as well, and that sort of shows off a few of the other animals and the flamingos being nasty without putting it into too many words. What do we see? Well, plenty to be seen here. Obviously, it's a picture book, and it's quite heavily driven by the pictures in this case. We can see the flamingos complaining. We can see them looking quite shocked as well, as they sort of are taken aback that Charlie's been yelling at them. What do we feel? Well, Charlie gets pretty mad. He says he's had enough of these pompous pink puddlebirds, and he sort of scolds them, tells them off. And so we hear that. We hear plenty of dialogue, and we might even have a few splashing sound effects as he flops down into the mud as well. Okay, have a resolution, all good to go. I'm going to clip that into the back of my other templates, so that when I'm ready to write my drafts, my first computerized draft on a word processing program, I'll have that all there to guide me, and I can sort of spread it out, see the pictures as well, put them together, cut them out if I want to, and it'll all look great. So there you have it, guys. Charlie's solved his problem all on his own. He's worked out that maybe it was his attitude that he needed to change, and he just had to hear those horrible flamingos saying such nasty things about his friends and family to realize that it's not good to complain all the time, and maybe you shouldn't be so uptight, and you should just kind of relax and love your family and love your people for who they are. Okay, so for homework, you are going to, number one, make sure you are reading plenty illustrators, make sure you are drawing pictures every day, and get your resolution template all filled out. Next time we are going to come back, we're going to write a great ending for our story, and after that, then we're going to get into the really fun stuff, the editing, that really juicy writing, and start fleshing out those drawings a little bit more and make them look really breathtaking, really exciting. So happy creating, guys, and I will see you all next time.